with DD News and DD India. He presents a wide variety of programs from hourly bulletins to primetime shows to weekly international magazine, and recently conducted a popular 12-part series, Startup Championship. Mr. Shubhendu is also a senior correspondent with the public broadcaster and has covered a number of key assignments, with including Prime Minister's foreign and domestic tour. He is Mojo enthusiast. Many of his stories are entirely short, voiced, and edited on mobile phone, which has been broadcast and appreciated. He closely follows issues of international politics, technology, and social development. He has worked in the radio and publishing industry with Oxford University Press as an editor. Not only this, he enjoys cooking, traveling, and photography. Now, we look forward to the presence of Honorable Dr. R.K. Tandon, Chairman Tips. So we request you to please address the gathering and share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon to one and all present here. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I believe you and your families are doing well. In today's session, we have amongst us Shri Shubhendu Ghosh to enlighten us on the nuances of new anchoring. Television news anchoring may seem glamorous, but is indeed a tough job. As the face of the television channel, for what the anchor work, it is a job that comes with a great deal of responsibilities and challenges. From coordinating to managing guests to breaking news as it happens to describing tragedies and triumphs as they take place, and above all, to maintain a balance between being objective and being humane. Today, we are going to explore and understand from our guest speaker about the television news, anchoring, ethics, and challenges in the modern world. With this, I welcome our eminent speaker, Mr. Ghosh. We are at the final day of the week-long lecture series organized by the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. In this week-long event, I am sure the students have got an opportunity to interact and learn from the experts in the varied field of media, like the relevance of non-violent communication, a practical insight, online journalism. Today, we will understand about the news anchoring from Mr. Shubhendu Ghosh. Trinity has always focused on practical training and industry exposure. Our institute has evolved a learning system that goes beyond classroom teaching to facilitate interaction with experts from various categories of media and communication. In this context, I am sure the students must have gained new insight through these interactions, and these sessions must have benefited the students. I would like to appreciate the director of the institute, Dr. Barkha Behel, for encouraging such events. I would also like to congratulate the entire Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, especially Professor Dr. Alok Parnadas, Mr. Sahil Dhal, Ms. Bhavna Solanki for organizing this lecture series. Thank you all for your patient listening. Jai Hind. Over to comparer, please.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inputs and sharing your thoughts. Now, I consider it to be a great honor to invite our guest, Mr. Shubhendu Ghosh, to share his knowledge and great life experiences.
Okay, there, Ravneet, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. First, my greetings to Dr. R.K. Tandon, Chairman, Trinity Institute of Professional Studies, Dr. Barka Bahal, Director Ma'am, teachers, students who've gathered to be part of this very interesting series. Thanks very much for inviting me to be a part of this special lecture series. First, of course, hope you and your loved ones are safe. The pandemic we've seen has wreaked havoc in almost everyone's life. We talk about our own fraternity. Many journalists, teachers have lost their lives. But today, let us try and talk about a little more in terms of the implication. The tragedy aside, uh, this pandemic also helps us see our work in a whole new perspective. Every day, I mean, these days now, when we go to work, now many of us are not able to work from home. If you're anchors, if you're reporters, we have to go out and report from the field. Uh, so, every morning, every evening, whatever time we're leaving, we remind ourselves about the need to be brave, need to be careful, and need to be very sensitive to the needs of the other who may be suffering as much as we are. For a long time, I think many of us had taken our work for granted. This pandemic, we can also see it as a certain wake up call at a personal and professional level. Now, something important has happened, I believe, with concerns of safety and infections in television media and broadcast media. The glamour question has taken a backseat. Today, I mean, at least at Doordarshan, my colleagues, we wear a mask when we go on air as well. Uh, Most of the times, there is no makeup. We're not as worried about having high resolution 4K quality visuals as long as we are able to connect with the relevant guest, expert, or correspondent online. Now, there is a renewed focus on content and connectivity. The priority is to keep, during these difficult times, keep our viewers, keep the masses informed and updated. And we realize afresh how we are a link as television media, as broadcast media or other forms of media. We are a link between people and reality. And these are important moments to reflect on the work that we do. And as I think as students, as faculty members, we can ponder over it uh, over a longer period of time. Now, I understand that I'm in the company of learned teachers, bright, well-read students of journalism. Now, I'm not sure if I can tell you something new, but what I will seek to do in the next few minutes is through the means of some of my own experiences. I will try and talk about something what I've sort of experienced, what I've learned. I will share the value of the learning that you already are receiving in a classroom. So I'll try to sort of connect it with some practical experiences. Uh, Given the subject of the talk today, I will first share about some common challenges and highlight particular skills and strategies that we can work on that I hope you, as students and future professionals, find useful. And after that, once we've spoken about that first part, I will try and reflect on a few of the many ethical issues that we are facing in the field today. So, if you can begin with that section on challenges and opportunities for all young journalists, all students of TV media. One of the first things that shapes your personality as a news anchor, if you can start with that, is interesting because it is not about how you look or how you dress or how good or bad your hair is. Your persona on air is driven by how do you perceive your audience. Now, in most of the cases, you can't see your audience unless you're doing a physical audience-based show where the audience members are present there. So, who do you imagine your audience to be? Who you are speaking to when you present your news stories? You're just speaking to a blank camera, of course. But who are you imagining that you're speaking to? Are you speaking to a stranger? Are you speaking to a child? Are you speaking to a crowd of people? So then you naturally would feel that you need to say things louder, maybe push your voice and even shout if that is required. So that was one of the questions that bothered me in my initial days at television media. I was fortunate to have as my colleague Mr. Mark Lynn. He's one of the leading English anchors in the country, very learned and humble. I went up to him and asked him. I asked Mark, Mark, I've been just curious. Been presenting news bulletins, but I'm just wondering how loud is good enough. And he, from his long experience, he said, "Well, I mean, you can be as loud as you want to. The mic that you wear is very sensitive and good enough, so your voice will reach. But is it possible for you to imagine that the viewer that you're speaking to is a friend? Then how loud would you like to be? Would you like to shout? Would you like to say things in a pleasant manner?" So it was a very important insight that Mark shared with me. So what I'm trying to say is, however good, bad, difficult, exciting the news story that you have to present may be, you don't have to be over the top. You can stay calm. I mean, it's not new to us. Uh, you browse through channels, we see a lot of passionate outbursts on screen by television anchors. Now you can choose your style. I'm no one to judge on that issue, but I do think being calmer and natural is not boring. I believe our job is not to tell the viewers how to feel. Should I feel angry? Should I feel grief? Should I feel excited? Uh, my job as an anchor is to be able to deliver the news, the development that has happened or that is happening truthfully, and let the viewers decide for themselves. Now, it does not mean as a television journalist or television anchor, you don't have emotions. We just like ordinary people. In fact, we are expected to be more sensitive. And we feel angry, we feel feelings of hate given what kind of news comes to us. We feel happy. There are also moments of breakdown you will experience when you go into the field and work as a professional. And you can have your political preferences and even biases. Sometimes you can feel physically sick, but you still have to work, come on air. You can be upset because of some experience or some development. All those feelings are real, and you'll be feeling all those feelings, mind you. As a news anchor, you don't rise above those feelings. In fact, you learn to deal with them. But when we're on screen, despite how we feel, we have despite what we are feeling, when we are on screen, we have to deliver the news with utmost clarity. Now, the key to being an anchor, from my little experience, I think, is that first you need to learn to anchor yourself. The manner in which a ship anchors the ship. It makes it stable, weathers the storm. There can be a storm, but the ship remains stable, and therefore it can protect itself and all the people in it. So if you can first anchor yourself, it is after that that you anchor on screen. Remember, we are carriers of all kind of news. We have to deliver all kind of stories. As an anchor, I can't choose that, I'll only deliver good, pleasant developments, not difficult stories of crime or of a terrible attack. So I can't choose as an anchor. As an anchor, I have to be open. I have to be ready for any kind of news and development that may come in every moment. And this pandemic, of course, has tested our physical and emotional limits as journalists. Heartbreaking developments come in every day. But then there are other stories also. Elections take place, and we have to analyze political developments. There are sporting events where when India does well, we have to emote that kind of an expression as well of success. There are film award functions taking place, perhaps online. There are very exciting, pleasant developments like a NASA rover flying on the surface of Mars. So these are exciting, positive developments happening also alongside one of the most terrible times that the humanity has seen. So your time on air and off air throws up all kind of emotions, but as an anchor, it is your responsibility. You have to strike a balance instead of be swept by an emotion, either be too happy about a news or too sad about a development. You have to strike a balance instead of going over the top, be excessively happy, sad, or angry. So I think that's one of the first challenges that you must train yourself to handle. Now, Dr. Tandon mentioned about situations of breaking news, which are very common today, and I think that distinguishes the role of a news reader as it was in the earlier years, and today we call it anchor because an anchor sustains the program. We don't only present stories that have been written by our editors and there are voiceovers, so a completely finished product. We also have important developments just coming in. Sometimes we anticipate them, sometimes we don't. And the point is that we have to be ready for them at all times. Now, if I can share an anecdote about breaking news and how we find ourselves in a tricky, challenging position. This was June of 2020, this was last year. So pandemic, it's a few months into the pandemic, and we were all busy with the pandemic-related news. And most of our bulletins shows were about how we're dealing with the pandemic. And then in June, one day, suddenly a big news comes in that there has been a clash between Indian and Chinese soldiers in Galwan region of Ladakh. What was worst that there were casualties reported. Now we know that between India and China, border-related talks have been ongoing. Skirmishes are common, but a clash of this proportion was unprecedented. Given the importance, we turned to immediately as the news came in. We had our usual bulletins and shows to progress, but given the importance of this news that came in, we turned to what we call in news parlance program mode. In which we stop the usual plan of broadcasting and we sustain and we stay with the big news that is just coming in for an hour, for a couple of hours, or even more. And the challenge that was lying with us and for me as an anchor and my colleagues was that there was very little that was immediately known. And think of this, a news has just come in, we're waiting for more updates, and there's a challenge to stay on that news for a couple of hours. And there was very little that we knew. There was, unlike a conventional show or a bulletin that we present, there were no ready voiceovers or anchor links that were ready made. So how do we sustain a program with the big news that just comes in? What do we do? And what do we talk about? And immediately, when such a thing happens, what our assignment, which is the coordinating body in any news organization, which immediately connects the anchor to reporters on the field who are tracking the story, to a lot of experts and guests who can reflect on the stories. So, I'm on the screen, and suddenly the screen is also full of other people who can comment on it. And I can tell you something which we anchors often think about. All anchors, mind you, however big or small the issue is, when we're connected to experts and eminent people on air, we are concerned about what are we going to ask? How are we going to put our question across? What is the right question to ask, especially given the sensitive nature of the development between the two countries? And we're a public broadcaster, and every news channel has responsibilities. For public broadcaster, we have to be very, very careful about not speculating and staying with facts. But again, what's going on in our minds is also that, okay, we have to sustain this program for a long duration, and we know so little. And viewers who have tuned into our channel are waiting for information. They're waiting for the anchor to say something, waiting for the anchor to ask questions and engage. So that's the sort of challenge that we have to face in an everyday situation. So if I were to talk about what do we do, so I'll have to go back a little in time because anchoring does not begin when you're on air, when you say, good afternoon, welcome to our program or bulletin. This is my name and I'm here to present the story. That's not where anchoring begins, I think. I think anchoring begins much ahead of that, and it's a sort of 24/7 vocation. An anchor must prepare all the time. Whether you're on air or you're off air, at home, watching television, reading something, you have to remember and reflect on your responsibility as an anchor. You can have your favorite topics, which you're very comfortable with. For some people, it may be cricket and sports. For some people, it may be politics. For some people, it may be climate change. Subjects on which you can impromptu speak a lot of sense. You can engage with guests, ask questions, and interact. But there are topics which may not be your strong areas, and yet you have to engage with your experts and reporters for a long period of time. So you can have your favorite topics, but as an anchor, you must have a wide spectrum of knowledge. You must try and work towards staying abreast with all important domestic and international issues. It is in occasions like the breaking news that came in from Galwan region that you bank on your background knowledge. Who knew that such a development would happen? What we knew were that there've been skirmishes which have happened over a period of times, and talks are taking place. So who expected a violent a clash to break out? So and you're connected to the reporter and the guest as well. So it's natural for you to feel challenging if you do such mock sessions in your own institutions. You might feel a little lump in the throat. What am I going to ask? Should I put down 5 questions? How do I go about it? How many questions is good enough? What is the first question? So these thoughts, if they worry you, it's absolutely normal and it's natural. It concerns all the anchors, even while they're spent a lot of time on air. Now, instead of talking to a reporter or talking to an expert or guest as a challenge, think of as an opportunity. You should try and utilize the expertise of your correspondent and the expertise of the guest to build up your program. So the first thing I would ask, and I did ask the reporter, was give us the details of what was happening, factual details. And in your training, irrespective of which area of journalism you are in, we've all learned about 5W and 1H: what, where, when, why, who, and how. And trust me, it's not just a theoretical sort of point. We use it all the time, and it's tremendously useful. So if you remember 5W and 1H, so about 5-6 questions are always ready for you to ask, which are important. So use the update. When the reporter gives you an update in a breaking news, use that update from the reporter and then refer to it to the broad understanding of the issue. In this case, as I was talking about what kind of relations did India and China have in the recent months, and how was it getting transformed? How did the leaders communicate? And things like that. So you juxtapose the current event with your own background knowledge of the event that has taken place. So use the update from the reporter and refer to your broad understanding of the issue, and then engage with the expert who's on air with you. Now, going back to the example that I was mentioning, since the Wuhan summit between India and China, I think it was 17, since the Wuhan summit, leaders of the two countries were working to improve ties tremendously. Now, so my question naturally became, and my reporters gave me about what kind of casualty figures had come up, what kind of clash had taken place, how it had taken place while the talks had been on. So putting these together, my first question was, how does the Galwan incident threaten to derail the progress made in the ties between India and China in the recent years? Now, just a sample question. And I requested the expert to put that into perspective. So, a seemingly simple question requires you to know about what has happened now, what is the background of the event, and explore the possibilities for future. So that's one way in which you can think of handling breaking news situations of different kind. Moving on to another aspect of the work that I do. These days, anchors have to do everything. You have to write your stories, you have to be a correspondent, go cover stories as well. So you must be prepared that you may not always be in the air-conditioned studio and present a news that may already be ready for you. You will have to gather stories and also report on them. So you must be trained and be prepared for all kinds of assignments. So there's one assignment I want to tell you about. I'm a correspondent with DD News and DD India, and I had the opportunity to cover some of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's domestic and foreign visits. Now, one such event was the much talked about Howdy Modi event in United States. Now, it doesn't get bigger than this. Also as an opportunity for a journalist to cover the Prime Minister is an important responsibility and opportunity. And so we're both excited, and also there's always this pressure to be able to do your best and get a good coverage for your network. Now, so Prime Minister of India was meeting a huge diaspora gathering in the United States. The theme of the Howdy Modi event was that. The way it got bigger was that the then President of the United States, Donald Trump, was also joining him on the stage. So all in all, a mega event. And my team was sent in advance, about a week in advance to United States, Houston. The pressure and expectations were quite sky high, and the actual event with both leaders in sight may have been about an hour or more, but the content of what they said, the build up to the event of this proportion, had to be captured and communicated. And again, the challenge was, where does one begin as a correspondent? Now, as I mentioned, the focus was Prime Minister Modi's interaction with the diaspora. So we thought that we could begin with that theme, and through various sources that you must cultivate at work. Sometimes in the embassy, you find out people who are resourceful in the country that you have to visit. Through sources, we managed to connect with prominent Indian Americans. We met many of the community members and recorded our interactions, sometimes in their homes, in their offices, and other locations, and their perspective on this big program that Prime Minister was going to be a part of. We met a lot of students as well who were going to perform, who were going to be part of this mega event. So, these different perspectives were giving it a shape for our viewers. They were giving an insight into what this program was all about and what do Indian Americans think about Prime Minister's visit and other issues. So you establish a connection between your viewers and the big program that is coming up. So in course of days, we tried to cover as diverse aspects of the visit as possible, from lives and contribution of Indian Americans, popular places of visit, of worship, of social gathering in America for Indians and Indian Americans. I visited NASA headquarters also and explored the theme of cooperation between India and the US in space sector, between NASA and ISRO. A few months ago, the Chandrayaan mission had already taken place, so there was also a link to explore there, and so on. The point is that when you are going to cover an important assignment, you must prepare, push your boundaries, plan your stories in advance, and think of stories that will give your viewers, over a period of time, through different stories, a 360-degree experience of the importance of the event. So, as I mentioned, planning and research is crucial. Your knowledge has to be thorough. International relations, economic ties, trade aspects, people-to-people ties, rapport that the leaders of the two nations have with one another, individual achievers, initiatives that have taken place in the recent times. All of this has to be cultivated and fresh in your mind to be able to imagine stories. The past and the future relationship, to be able to discover and showcase connections and stories. So that's where you plan and think of the scope of your coverage. And come to the main day of the event of Howdy Modi. Prime Minister had already reached United States, and in America it was 11 a.m. In India it was the time difference, it was evening. This was supposed to be a 5 to 6 hours live broadcast, exclusive broadcast by a network. And we had to be on our toes. We had to be absolutely ready for all kinds of live inputs. So this was around 11 a.m. that Prime Minister had to come on stage. The main program was at 11 a.m., but our team, I and others, we reached the stadium where it was happening by 6 a.m. in the morning. So needless to say that for an event like this and a coverage like this, you don't get enough sleep. You work all day, you have to get up really early in the morning. There is a lot of physical effort also in international tours as journalists, not a big team that goes. So you also have to help your team, even lug a lot of luggage, There are heavy tripods and camera and other equipments that you must help your team to carry. Long distances sometimes you have to walk. So you carry heavy equipments, this long day that lied ahead of us. And we had to report from various locations from within the stadium, from the entry gate, from among the crowds that had gathered in the stadium. We had to, from media cubicles that were assigned to different news organizations. So continuous live updates, and the responsibility was on me and my colleagues to be able to bring all the developments of these big events to our viewers. So continuous live coverage, as we call it. So think of it as a very challenging physical and mental exercise. As a journalist, as a correspondent, you will have to decide and work on how will you decide to stay on your feet for some 6-7 hours without coming across as exhausted. So, so there are no given lunch breaks for anchors or correspondents, So it's not like from 2 to 3, I will not attend to any news stories. I will have my lunch. Please don't disturb me. Send me a coffee if you can. So, we don't have those luxuries. Even while you're eating and you're eating at a time when some other program is going on air, your editor could just shout at you and say, there's something important that has happened, rush to the news studio, to leave everything and run to the studio and be ready. Even while you're running to the studio, you have to imagine, a big statement has come by the government, or some, for example, a terror attack has happened in a region. So you constantly think about how you're going to be engaging with the issue on air. Who's the guest who's going to come and talk to you? Who's the reporter? So you constantly, in your mind, you have to be on air, even if you're not on air on the screen. So coming back to this event, as I mentioned, that we had to be ready for the live programming of 6-7 hours. We had some maybe packets of biscuit in our pockets. So when we would feel hungry, we'd just quickly have a couple of biscuits and sustain ourselves. And it's also a mental exercise because the content has to be engaging. You can't just know 5 things, 5 important things about India-US relations. So each time an anchor connects with me and say, so what's happening, I will say those 5 things. No, it doesn't work like that. Your viewers are intelligent viewers. You have to assume them as intelligent. Your anchors are very intelligent. They would be asking you about different perspectives, different aspects of the visit. And you, as someone who has the opportunity of being on the ground, have to present fresh and interesting concepts and updates and make the links very visible. So you can't be repeating yourself. So it is a mental exercise to be able to present engaging content. You have to have it, of course. So you have to think of what new perspectives, people you can connect with, and bring their perspectives to the viewers who are watching you live on television. And while we're doing all of this, there's this high point for me personally. We were in the media cubicle, these cubicles given to different media houses. Once the program starts, the security doesn't let you move around too much. So now you are in the media cubicle, and then you can give your lives from there. You can have your guest invited to the media cubicle, but you can't go out. Excuse me. So one of the high points was that a lot of guests were coming in, walking into different media cubicles, and you had to be ready for whoever could come. Think of this Prime Minister of India and President of United States are on stage. So who's who of international politics and international arena were in attendance. So if you know of Senator Ted Cruz, he is the senator from Texas, United States, a very important figure. He came into our media cubicle, and the person, his media coordinator, said that he's around if you want to have a chat. I said, yes, why not? Please invite him in. Now, the tricky part is that it's a high security area. You can't just walk up to a VIP guest and talk to them. We know that for an event like this, as I mentioned, a lot of senators, Congress leaders would gather. So it's not that it was an accident that Mr. Ted Cruz just walked in. Usually there is a lot of lengthy follow-up with event organizers, with media managers of different leaders and institutions to get them live and get them exclusive, which is a big thing, for a correspondent. to get exclusive interactions, exclusive content for your network and for your challenge. So to get them exclusive on your channel, so these opportunities don't just happen by accident. You have to prepare for them. You have to rigorously plan in advance. And when a global leader, you finally manage to catch hold of him and he's sitting right next to you, every question that you ask has to be measured and meaningful. He doesn't have all the time in the world. Probably you'll be able to ask 2-3 questions and then he leaves. So to get the most out of him, your questions have to be very measured and tailored carefully. So the clarity of your thought, clarity of understanding of what the event is and what is the importance of that particular leader will reflect in your questions and thereby in the responses of your guest as well. So I had the opportunity of asking 2-3 questions from him on different aspects of the relations. And I remember one particular aspect was that one of the aspects of Prime Minister's visit, apart from people to people connect, was also to boost energy ties between India and United States. And if you look up Houston and Texas, apart from being known for its space headquarters and research, it's also the headquarters. It's often called the energy headquarters of the world in the United States. And Prime Minister's engagement was also going to focus on that. And Ted Cruz works closely with that. So we could also post a question on that, and he responded talking about different opportunities that lie ahead. So in all, we could make use of having an important person like him live with us. So basically prepare for your tour in advance, and because often you have to travel on short notice. Maybe if you're very lucky, you'll be informed a week in advance for a foreign tour. For domestic tours, maybe a day in advance that you're traveling tomorrow, or even you're traveling the same day. So prepare and use all the time that you have to think of what kind of stories, what kind of content you can read up on. I prepare while I'm traveling in the car, in the train, or I'm flying in the plane. Whatever time I get, I try to use that opportunity. And depending upon your mode of travel, you could think of doing the same. So when you're not on air, as in when you're not on screen, use that time to absorb as much information and knowledge of the world around us continuously. And please do not think that you're anchor only when you're on the screen. You're anchor 24/7. And that absorption of knowledge and skills will help you tremendously while you are on screen. Now, these were some of my experiences. If I could just reflect on some themes of ethics. On the subject of ethics, of course, it's a wide and very important spectrum. There's so much to deliberate. Every generation's, you would agree, witnesses, the best and the worst kind of journalism, and we're also witnessing that today among us. So I will just touch on a couple of points that I feel personally very deeply about. And these are also challenges that we face as professionals. First is fake news. Now, I hope you also enjoy watching films. And if you watch Spider-Man, he often says, with great power comes great responsibility. When people watch you on television, there is an automatic. I mean, it may not be your first day as an anchor or a reporter. And you may think that, अरे मुझे तो कोई नहीं जानता है, मुझे तो सब माफ कर देंगे कोई गलती होगी तो. But the moment you come on screen, you're holding, either you have a laptop of your network or you're holding the mic of your news channel. When people watch you on television or any other media on your mobile phones, there's an immediate degree of trust and faith in what you're saying. That's the power of a television anchor and reporter. Therefore, your commitment has to lie first before anyone else. Your commitment has to lie with your viewers. And therefore, your highest priority as a professional is to protect your credibility. Everything you say on air must be checked again before you say it. Depending upon what kind of organization you're working on, you may write your own stories or anchor links. You may have a team writing it for you. But as an anchor, as a reporter, the final responsibility is yours. Knowingly or unknowingly, you cannot fall victim or perpetrate fake news. Check the story, check the source. Check the data thoroughly before. Check the names of people mentioned in the story. Don't get the names wrong. Check the graphics. We these days you would see a lot of graphics, breaking news graphics flashes on the screen. To an extent possible, check the content of those graphics in advance if you can. Uh, Check the bands, the story bands that run in the bottom of the stories on the television screen. When you can, check them in advance. You can't pass the buck later. You're in a live situation. You can't get up from your seat and go tell your editor, no, there's a spelling mistake that I made, please fix it. You can't do that. You don't have a chance. You say it live and then it's stored forever on YouTube and other modes. You can't correct yourself later. You have to thoroughly understand it and actually be scared of making a mistake and try and not make any. So you can't later say that, look, I didn't write it. Somebody else wrote that story. And if you say such a thing, it will just reflect very poorly as a professional. If you've said it on screen, all said and done, it's on you, it's your responsibility. You have to constantly think of yourself as fighting a battle with those peddling fake news or errors or mistakes. Always stay on your toes. It doesn't end with the show on air. As I mentioned, that anchoring is 24/7. Problematic content that you retweet. How are you on social media when you're not working as a professional? Any problematic content or fake news that you accidentally or knowingly retweet, that you support, that you put a like button on, that you comment on casually on social media, thinking that, I'm not saying it on air, and I'm just putting a like button on Twitter, kaun dekh raha hai? How does it matter? Or you're just chatting among your friends and say something disturbing, which is very unlike of your persona on screen. Don't do it. You're a public person 24/7 when you're a journalist. All of that contributes when you're not on air. Your behavior, what you say, what you write, what you like, what you retweet, all of that contributes to your credibility. So always exercise a degree of discretion in your conduct on air and off air, and look at every development with a fair bit of suspicion, every story and development, so that you check the sources and you check the data again and again till you know it is confirmed and you can say it on air. So that's sort of a rigorous exercise you must become very comfortable with. The second ethical issue and the final one really, I want to talk about is conflict of interest. Now, one of the perks of anchoring, many people would think, is that you become a celebrity of sorts. One of the features of being an anchor and correspondent is that you become a familiar face. Your access to people and institution opens up. You may be interacting with ministers, political leaders, foreign dignitaries. Others can't even find an appointment with them, and you're sitting across the table and talking to them. People will see you as someone, when they see you talking to a minister on TV or interviewing a minister, political leaders, they will see you as someone who has a lot of influence, and therefore they might want to use your position to fulfill their own goals. They'll ask you, can you pass on this message to a particular institution or a person? Can you do me this favor? In fact, sometimes we're all humans. You may be tempted or you may be forced to seek a favor from a person of influence. But that's when you must remember that your spectrum of access, your ability to access big people and big institutions has increased, not because you are personally a great person and therefore every minister must have an ear for you or big institution must open a door. As an individual, don't think so highly of yourself. You're not. I'm not. We've got this access to be able to do our job as journalists, to report stories, to get answers, not to enjoy favors for ourselves or for others. So when you take a favor, it's a tricky business. You have to also pay back, right? So invariably, you compromise your position to work and report stories independently. So always keep a professional distance. Whichever institution you're going to, however big a leader you are interacting with, you may be offered, so join us for a dinner or take a gift for covering our story. Maybe you're part of a certain like like an auto expo or an exhibition, and they say, please give us a good coverage, take this gift from us, but please give us a good coverage, say no. Always keep a professional distance while you work as a journalist. And every day when you do that, you will see credibility is almost like a muscle. You keep working on it, it'll keep becoming stronger. And finally, as I come towards the conclusion of the talk, I want to say this, that technology, remember, is a bedrock of communication today. And I want to talk a little about embracing new technologies and mobile journalism, which is something that I'm particularly very interested in. While you hone your communication skills, you also have to train yourself to become more comfortable with newer tools and techniques every day. Keep on the lookout. Mobile journalism, often called mojo, is not new, but I feel that we as communicators and journalists haven't fully utilized the potential of these incredible devices. Most of us carrying a mobile phone, a smartphone like this. We are carrying. You have to see this. You're carrying a new studio in your pockets with basic knowledge, information on videography and editing. You can shoot, voice, edit, render stories for broadcast, live broadcast on television. Last year around this time, in fact, when the lockdown was on, our workforce, camera person and everyone was working in staggered shifts. And I learned about an inspiring initiatives by Education Society. They teach deaf and mute children, but due to the pandemic, students and teachers were stuck at different places. But interestingly, this was the news, that with online education, for the first time, they were now connecting differently able students with their teachers across the country. And I thought this was a very important story to do, but there was a crunch of manpower, like availability of camera person or editors at that point in time. So how do we do a story like that? And I thought, I had some experience, and I thought, why not do it on phone? So I drove to the institution, took some shots, bites in a few hours. An element of interest was that since I was telling the story of differently abled youngsters, why not also say it in their language? So I tried to incorporate sign language in the story as well. Wrote a story on the phone, voiced it. I didn't need a separate camera person, editor. In a few hours, my story was ready for broadcast. So finding an opportunity in a crisis, or should I say finding a story in a crisis, is part of our job as journalists, and technology can be a great enabler. And I think this is a long talk. I hope I haven't taken much of your time, and in fact, really come to the conclusion of my talk. My best wishes to all the participants for their future endeavors. But before I close, this mobile story that I was talking about, I'll try and see if we can play it for you, just so that you know how your phone could be useful in telling a story. And with that, I rest my case. May I request Sahil if you can play the story from YouTube? Thank you very much, everyone. Okay.
Just a second. Ajay sir will take over. Ajay sir, please.
The coronavirus-induced lockdown has affected everyone around us. For some, it is end of the road, and for others, it became a gateway for new adventures. Now, up next is the report, which is about the will of speech and hearing impaired students and vision of their teachers who helped turn the challenge of lockdown into an occasion to embrace online learning. A special report by our correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh, and this report has been entirely short and
Hi everyone, my name is Dhanbad. To see them soon, lockdown is over.
Gautam and his classmates are speech and hearing impaired. They're still in Delhi, run by Sai Swami. As coronavirus-induced lockdown was announced, students and teachers were stuck in different parts of the country. Life, it appeared, came to a standstill. It was then Sai Swam Society thought of ways to bring students and teachers together again through innovation in education through online classroom.
So when the lockdown was announced at that time, we were little worried as to how we will teach our deaf students. But my team people, we had an exchange of ideas. We spoke to each person, deaf and hearing team of SSS, about they supported me so much online classes.
Communication is a problem, and with the lockdown and the home isolation, the triggers of fear, of anxiety, of all of these problems have increased, and communication is more of a problem. To solve this problem, we have online counselors who are connecting with individuals across India.
Amidst the COVID outbreak, the school takes special care for nutritious diet for students, social distancing, and regular disinfection. They say there is an opportunity hidden in every crisis, and Sai Swam Society and students here are example of that. When due to COVID-19 lockdown, people couldn't go out, they used online means to continue with their education. This also provides a glimpse of the future when online platform could be the way to take education to each and every child in the country. For DD India. So I think there were some jerks while playing it on YouTube, but thank you, Sahil, for playing it for us.
We can share it the link with the student later on.
Yeah, Ravneet, I think I got your name right. Ravneet, it's back to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your knowledge and sharing your experiences. This will definitely help us in future. And also that mojo has been used in a very good manner and inspiring. So now it's time for question and answer. All the interested people can put their questions in chat box, and your questions will be answered accordingly.
Okay, Ravneet, I got some few questions from in the chat box. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So, Bindu sir, Aparna Menon wants to ask that, sir, as you mentioned, content is the king these days, and 4K, 8K video quality or glamour is not at the forefront. Doesn't this hold back public broadcasters like DD from the masses? Isn't good broadcasting quality important to pull people, especially young viewers?
So what part of the quality are you talking about? Can you just repeat that part of the question?
She's asking that you said that 4K and 8K quality video is not in the forefront right now because of the pandemic, and glamour is not at the forefront. So she is asking that doesn't this hold back public broadcasters like DD from the masses, because most of the viewers are younger in age right now?
Okay. So Aparna, if I get your question correct, I wasn't suggesting that high resolution or good quality videos or looking good on screen for that matter and looking well groomed on screen is not important. I think they're very, very important. But the particular point that I was making in my talk was this time of the pandemic has thrown us into a particular crisis. This is the time of the pandemic when many of the reporters and camera persons may be sick. And as a reporter, you may have to use your phone camera to report from a particular point. In an ideal situation, we would like to invite our guests, sit with them across a very nicely lit, made studios. Everyone, not just Doordarshan or any other news channel, everyone would like to, have that kind of a setup, which looks good on screen. All of that is very important and basics of television media. But this pandemic has thrown us into a challenge where many of those resources are not available to us or anyone. It is not safe to sit with a guest in the same studio. The risk of infection all around and to maintain social distancing. So that is when you have to improvise. And in that context, I'd said that especially in these times, we are focusing only on the content. We're not as worried about if the lighting and if the studio is good enough or if the makeup is all well done. All those are important aspects of journalism. Let me not dissuade you against that. But I'm saying while dealing with the crisis, content becomes very important and everything else goes to the background. So if you can have high resolution and if you can have guests and other people in the studio, we always try to. But when we can't because of such unprecedented times, we just focus on the content. Aparna.
Thank you for the answer, sir. She has one more question on the senator story you shared with us. She is asking that is it practical and expected that a journalist know everything about every political personality? If another senator had walked in, could you have conducted that effective as an interview?
That's a great question, Aparna. In an ideal world, you would wish that the senator or the person that you already know about walks in for a conversation, but that doesn't happen. And most of the times, in fact, you may not know much in detail about the person that you have to interact with, but there is something that you could do. In the situation that I was in, I had no idea, honestly, who's the senator or congressman, Republican or Democrat. But what I did know was leaders of the two countries were meeting, Prime Minister of India and President of the United States. And what the issues on the discussion table between the two countries were sort of diverse from people to people connect to energy and politics and international relations and so on, as I mentioned. So those were the foundation of my questions. So if instead of Ted Cruz, someone else had walked in, I would perhaps in some manner ask him to reflect on the same issues. So it may appear as if I asked the right questions to Ted Cruz, but I was trying to ask right questions vis-a-vis the context in which I was reporting, not so much the person that I was talking to.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Moving to the next question from Ansh. He is asking that if an anchor is on air, he is live on air, and if we get short on words, so how you avoid any activity like if you are shivering or if you have stage fear and if you are on live. So what to do in that situation?
Interesting. It's an interesting point. I think we've all experienced that. And if I can, what's the name of the person again who's asked the question?
Ansh.
Hans. Answer's very natural. First thing is that each time you feel a little nervous, anyone feels a little nervous in front of the camera or during a program, please don't think that you're the only person who feels like that. Everyone feels like that. It varies on a good day and a bad day. But on a serious note, how can you? One is that you are feeling that and how do you deal with it. Quite another is how do you make sure that you don't feel such a thing. One key to not feeling a little nervous or unprepared on screen is, as I mentioned, it's very simple, is to be prepared. If you are not just thinking about your job as that ek ghante ka program or half an hour anchoring or one news bulletin, but you think about as much bigger, that even while you're eating or you're spending time with your parents, with your friends, you're just walking and taking a walk, you're watching some other news channel, watching a film, if you're constantly thinking uh, of your own understanding of issues and themes, then the likelihood of you being caught unguard or being caught unprepared is going to be very less. You always have something to connect to if you're constantly thinking as an anchor, even outside of your newsroom. And yet, but really to also answer the point that you asked, what if you are on air and you are nervous and there's something has happened and and you're not prepared as an anchor? Go back to the cardinal rule of 5W and 1H. Whatever event has happened, and if you have a reporter, if you don't have a reporter, then try to, you will have to, say the content that is available again and again in comprehensive manner to your viewers, which is absolutely fine because some breaking news will play out on the screen. So you may not be on the screen all the time. At the same time, if you're connected to a reporter, which is, I hope you are, fall back on your learning of 5W and 1H. Try to find out these basic information about what the event has happened. And while you are getting that information, I hope you will automatically be able to think more and engage more with the reporter and be able to present better content to your viewers. So yeah, there.
Thank you, sir. I have two questions which are kind of interrelated from Divansha and Mitali. So they wanted to ask that Mitali's question that getting into an anchoring job or being a correspondent for a reputed news channel is very difficult task. So after becoming before being an anchor or the face of a news channel, so do a student have to do any field job or any other desk job also? And before doing that, is there any need to do any anchoring based course also?
Okay. Um, First, okay, you asking me, right. So first, it'll be good if you think of yourself, anchors are journalists, reporters are journalists, editors are journalists. Uh, we all represent uh, different aspects of what journalists do. Uh, First, you should ask this question to yourself in the sense that if you get an opportunity today for a reputed institution, before the institution can trust you, the news network can trust you, ask yourself and honestly ask yourself, are you going to be a good anchor? Are you comfortable being on the screen? Uh, do you think you have the skills required? And we anchors is not a hidden work. You open television news channels, the thousands of news, hundreds of news networks that are there. You see them all the time. You see the kind of work that they do, the kind of shifts that they have to work on, the challenges that come in, the issues that they have to deal with. Try and imagine yourself in their position. Before an interviewer asks you, are you ready to be an anchor? You ask yourself if you're ready to be an anchor. You ask yourself if you can present stories with clarity, you can engage and interact with people on air with confidence. What kind of exercise would you require? Can you do some mock sessions in your own capacity or in your institution? So those are answers. First, you have to answer, and then, of course, it sort of begins from different places. Sometimes uh, you apply to a place which is an opening for an anchor, or you are an intern, and you say that you try and get an opportunity to cover a story, and therefore you come on camera and people see you and see your capability and ability. So that's how you climb the ladder. But more important would be to go prepared. You have to have the confidence that you have all the skills that are needed. Anyone, even a first year student of journalist or not even a student of journalist, will be able to list the good qualities of an anchor. You don't need an anchor to tell you how to be a good anchor. You can see and learn by yourself. So yeah, so there are different means to rise up the ladder. You can get an anchoring responsibility if you're good, and there is an opening in the institution. You can be a person who's working on the desk, and then look for an opportunity. Say you want to do a story, and then find an opportunity to be in front of the camera. There's so many people and friends I've seen, and they're all very, very talented. Some of them had started as desk editors, so they would write their stories, copy editors. But now they've grown up and they've risen to become leading correspondents for news channels. They cover prime minister, they cover big stories. So don't think that your first day in the news organization will be in front of the camera. It may not be the case. But the point is not what it is. The point is that if you want to be in front of the camera, make sure every day you learn a little, you push your abilities a little, you look for opportunities, and you try to reach where you want to be, either as a reporter or as an anchor. And opportunities do come up. But have the perseverance, look for the opportunities, and keep working hard.
Thank you for touching those points, sir. Harleen wants to ask that have you faced any situation where your patience was being tested, and how you kept your emotions in control at that particular time?
Harleen, what a question to ask. To be honest, I don't know if I should say this, the thing about credibility is coming to my mind, but the truth is, so many times, all the time, sometimes, and especially around this time of the pandemic, we as journalists, as news channels, we are also filtering a lot of content from what is going on air. So a job of a filter is not a very pleasant one. There's a lot of very, very disturbing visuals. There are a lot of very, very disturbing developments, data that comes in. We have to choose what is appropriate to go on air, what is not. Um, uh, there are instances of, uh, of violence and riots break out, and our reporters are in the field reporting, and they are at risk, and they're at a great risk, and they're connecting with you live, and you can see a lot of disturbance behind them. There is fire, there may be stone pelting. So yeah, to answer your question simply, there'll be so many occasions where your patience is tested, where you're very anxious, angry on air, on the screen. But again, something that I said in the beginning, um, however difficult the situation, and situations will go out of hand, will be difficult. We are living in a world which experiences turmoil every day. So don't think that it's going to be a rare thing. It's going to be every day. However difficult the situation uh, 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 happens, uh, remind yourself why you are on screen. Uh, Remind yourself why thousands and thousands of people are watching you on the screen. They are not watching Shubhendu Ghosh or anybody on screen to see how Shubhendu gets angry, or if Shubhendu gets agitated, or if Shubhendu has emotions. It's all around us. Anger, emotions, happiness, sadness is all around us. We don't need an anchor to see if an anchor has all those feelings. Our job is to be able to be the link between the people and the reality. Our job is job of a filter, a mirror, whatever you may call it. So irrespective of what you're feeling inside, never forget that you are the medium through which the nation, the world, the local society is learning about the development. So keep your emotions to an extent possible. I'm not saying be like a robot, but don't let your emotions, whether it's joy or whether it's sadness or anger or agitation, don't let it get the best of you. You should be able to speak coherently. You should be concerned about your reporter's safety. You should be concerned about the choice of your words. And end of the day, ask yourself, even while you're saying it, am I communicating content and information to my viewer? Is anyone who's listening to me for 10 seconds or an hour, is he leaving the screen after getting some valuable information or not? Don't, and your emotional outburst, your emotional breakdown, these are natural, but this is not your contribution to the viewer. Contribution to the viewer is content. So try and get hold of yourself and do your job.
Thank you, sir. We have next question from Preeti. Uh, Preeti and Abhishek, I think. So they wants to ask that you must have interviewed a lot of personalities and celebrities in different domains, whether it is a political beat or something else. So have you ever met any uncooperative personality who didn't cooperated with you during the interview? And if yes, if you can share that experience with the students.
Well, yeah, that's a familiar situation to be in. Now, just for the sake of privacy, I will not name the person nor the institution, but I will still tell you what had happened. So a certain person was elevated to a very important position, and I had to interview that person. And ours was one of the first interviews that we were given permission for, and because it's an important position, a lot of people who coordinate with you for this meeting, they tell you what to ask. You know, कि ये पूछना. Ask these 4 questions. Don't ask these questions. Don't go into these areas. So you get those sort of inputs all the time. You would have your own editorial lines in your different media organizations. So broadly, you would know the areas where you can go and not go. That aside, individually, when you are approaching a person, an important person, you would always come across these requests that please stick to these questions. Now, it is on you, and as a journalist, to what extent you want to listen to them and not listen to them. Are you looking for controversy, Or are you looking for information, important information, which would be enriching for the viewers to learn about? So I took a call that I took some of the questions that they mentioned, but I also introduced many of the questions that, they had suggested that please keep away from those questions. And interestingly, my interviewee was very comfortable answering them. So a lot of times, the hints and suggestions that you are given, that do it like this, do it like that, do your job like this. It is you. You have to take a measured call. You have to respect the office. You have to respect the person. As I said, avoid courting controversy for unnecessary reason. Yet, the quality of your interview and the quality of your engagement will depend on you. So you can be smart, insert questions, ask questions which can cover a wider spectrum of information that you can gather from the interviewee. Be respectful at all times. And yet, remember, you are the interviewer. You can exercise that power as long as you are in your limits of courtesy and editorial line. Always explore the boundaries that you can reach so that you can get more and more content. So yeah, so it happens all the time, Preeti, Abhishek, but then you take a call and try to get good content for your viewers and the job.
Okay. So Devansha wants to ask uh, that online journalism is on a boost right now, because I also go on various social media websites or new media to get my news content. So does that affect television news in the current scenario?
Uh, I think one of the most exciting thing that has happened in this present decade in particular is the rise of online news media for so many reasons. One importantly, why I think it's tremendously valuable is the diversity of news stories that we can get now. One news channel, one news anchor, one news program cannot, as much as we would like to, for different limitations, we can't get you all the stories and perspectives to you. With the limitations that we work with, it's a real world that we work in. So what do you do? I mean, if you watch one channel all the time, or you read one newspaper all the time, regularly, would you call yourself a very well-informed person? I'm sorry, I don't think I will be a person. I will be an informed person, or nor would you be. So I think this rise in online media has tremendously boosted the diversity of news coverage, and even more importantly, I think news perspectives. And therefore, I think it's a great thing for news organizations to come up in different medias. Mobile journalism is also on the rise, and in fact, I think as a viewer and as a professional who will in a year or two enter into a media organizations, you should be open to exploring all these medias. It's exciting. We have print, we have television, we have online, so much on YouTube. You should be able to explore all of this. And there's one thing that I wanted to quickly slip in, why I think it's important. And when I was talking about perspective, is that sometimes a newspaper or a news channel would think that they are the final word on any issue, that we show you the truths and we are the last word, and therefore the viewers also have to take that for granted. But with the rise of online media, in their analysis, even the manner in which news is delivered, even the work that the news organizations do their work, anchors do their work, their personalities, their work, even that is open for discussions and deliberations. So, so that makes, I think, the news ecosystem very healthy, because there is a lot of reflection on what we are doing, how we are doing, issues of credibility, issues of fake news. So I think there's a very, very healthy development, more diverse. Our ecosystem is more healthier for the news the ecosystem as a whole, and also, of course, good for the viewers.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question from Rajika, and I think it is an interesting one. Rajika said that I have heard sometimes that journalists are provided with a list of questions in a PC of a political party. So is it true? And if it is true, then what about the media ethics? And if it is not true, then do you think that these rumors are affecting the profession of journalism?
Yeah, so these are again, so it's very practical questions and real challenges that one faces. It is a reality. Sometimes you do, as I mentioned in the example that I mentioned earlier, that you do get set questions. But again, and that is going to test your own ability to negotiate your position as an interviewer. As long as I mentioned, that you're not unnecessarily courting controversy, you can push yourself as a journalist because the situation is real. So you asked a good question and the situation is real, you will face it. But that is when your ability as a journalist to explore newer areas of conversation and engagement with the concerned person will come into place. Talk to them, make them realize why they ask questions that you want to ask. It's possible that the questions that they've listed are important questions too. I'm not saying that they necessarily are questions which you didn't want to ask. Perhaps some of them you wanted to ask. But if there are questions that are missing from that list, I think you must pursue and find out why you should be able to get answers to your questions, why it is important for that person to answer those questions. And you, of course, you see it all the time in many interviews that irrespective of the understanding, if you think those questions are very important for the masses, for the people, then you take a stand and answer those questions. The concerned person has always got the opportunity to say no. And even in saying no, that will be an answer and a response and a perspective. So take those challenges, those calls you will have to take every day as a journalist.
Thank you, sir. I think Ishit also wants to ask a question. Ishit and Utkarsh are raising their hands for quite some time. So Ishit, you can ask your question.
A very good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Sir, actually, you mentioned earlier that after becoming a journalist or an anchor, whatever we do in our personal lives also somehow affects our professional life. So when we are keeping that in mind, that whatever we are saying outside is somehow affecting us in our professional life, aren't we maintaining what we call a two-faced personality? Like we are having two personalities at the same time, not being real to the ones we know, and maintaining us all together separate personality for our work profile. Won't that create a mental stress? And what if someday we have an outburst of regarding that? Won't the conditions worsen for us?
Uh, I think it's a very important question, and I think it's a very real one experience too. Um and in fact, in your question, what's your name again?
Ishit, sir, Ishit.
Ishit. In your questions also lies the answer to, is anchoring easy? Is it easy to be an anchor? Is it easy to be a journalist? Is it just about coming on television, speaking a few lines, presenting a story, or asking some questions and you're done? I think that's where the challenge of being an anchor lies. And as I mentioned earlier, that you're an anchor also when you're not on screen. So coming to the pressures, so yes, it is not easy, Ishit. My advice to you, and something that I also try to work on in person, is that, as I mentioned earlier, that uh, you still are a person who feels everything, who feels anger, who feels a lot of joy, who feels sometimes a lot of hatred, sometimes a lot of rage. Those are all real feelings. You have your political leanings also. It's absolutely natural. I mean, end of the day, you and I also go out and vote, right? On screen, we come across as neutral. Uh, we try, but we have our political preferences. All that is natural. We are living a life. Being an anchor does not mean you stop living your life. The only thing I was pointing to was to bring in a degree of discretion. Unlike a person, say, for example, a banker. Um, a banker is also in public life. He's engaging with people, but you may not always remember their face. You may not always remember their name when you're interacting with them. So if a banker goes out, is talking to his friends and openly talking about his political leanings on video, his or her work as, say, a cashier or, say, a credit card person is not getting affected. You know, it doesn't affect his work, even if he's saying on record, on a video. If a friend is making a video and he says openly, I support this party, I support this leader, or I hate or like this person, it doesn't affect his work. In any way. I mean, he can continue to do his work as normal, and he's expressing his views. But ask yourself, it may not be the same for a reporter or an anchor. Our persona, our public persona, is that of, at least we seek to become like that, someone who can show society a mirror, who can independently and in a transparent manner report a development. If my political leanings, if my social biases, if my own interests uh, are a public knowledge in a very explicit manner, I don't know if you, when you watch my programs, you will look at me or expect me to be independent. You will. I don't think you will. My credibility will go for a toss, whether you like it or not. So this is what I think. But again, coming to that point about, am I going to be a two-faced person? No. As I said, live your life like a normal person, absolutely. But just be wary of explicitly uh, expressing, demonstrating your leanings or your preferences in a manner. Think of this: if your viewer is watching that particular Facebook post in which you are talking about something, or in which it's a simple photograph, uh, in which you are at a place or with somebody, just think of the person that you work for, your viewer. If that person watches that video or looks at that photograph, will your credibility in any manner go for a toss? So if you're able to answer that question and say to yourself that no, I don't think so, then it's absolutely fine. I mean, so you, again, the choices are yours. I would use the word discretion and not transform yourself into a two-faced person. I mean, that would be growing crazy. That is not right. In fact, as a journalist, you have to be strong mentally, be stable on air and otherwise also, of course. So you have to hone that skill of remaining grounded, whether you're on air or off air. But I don't think you should compromise on your personal values or preferences. Just be discreet so that your credibility on air does not uh, go for a toss.
So, sir, can it be said that becoming an anchor essentially means that we all together create a new part and include it in a part of personality, or we lose a part of something that we already have?
Uh, I don't think you lose anything. It's like becoming a public person.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm not comparing a journalist with a political leader, but when just an example that we can relate to, when a political leader makes an unsavory remark, what do we say? We don't say that, "Arey, how can he say it as a human being?" Sometimes we do among ourselves. We know that people say these things behind doors. What do we say? We say to ourselves, we say to each other that it's not befitting to his office to say such a thing. It does not befit his office to conduct himself or herself in that manner. I think when you become an anchor, a journalist in any media, then you are entering an office of credibility. You have to experience, you have to realize, you have to uh, shoulder and feel that weight on your shoulder of having taken in a huge responsibility. The day you become a journalist, that day people, your viewers, your readers, your listeners, you become the source of reality. A lot of people will bank on you, whether you know it or not. So a lot of times you don't know who your readers are, who your viewers are. And you may finish your work, do your program, go home for a vacation. Your program may be playing on the air and on air, and people are watching it, learning from you. So when you enter this office, maybe if I use the word office, you must be prepared to shoulder that responsibility. If you're not willing to shoulder that responsibility, then you also have a choice of not entering this office. When you're entering this office of credibility, of this responsibility, and a lot of fame and other things also come with it. A lot of learning also comes with it. Those are the benefits of it. But the sense of responsibility must always dominate your conduct. And so I think it is only like a responsibility, when you go to visit a friend, or you go to meet a very respectable person, do you go there and show the worst side of you? I don't think so. You wear your best clothes. You choose your best words. You choose your best conducts. So similarly, I think works for this vocation. Uh, Present the best side of you, and yet be real and be discreet. So you have to be a part of that office and also live a real life. It's a challenge, but all good journalists have to bear this responsibility and be a part of this challenge.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, sir. Utkarsh, you can ask your question, but now after that we can move forward the session.
Good afternoon, Shubhendu sir.
Hi.
I'm having two questions. My first question is how to
Your name
become
again?
an English news anchor or entertainment host, and according to you, for this, what qualification and skills are required in India and also in abroad countries too, both in private and public sectors?
Okay, your name again?
Myself, Utkarsh.
Utkarsh. Okay. Utkarsh, it's an important question, I'd say. But Utkarsh, what year of journalism are you in?
Sir, video and electronic journalism anchor, basically.
Second year. Okay. So Utkarsh, if
So sorry, sir. You are asking the year. Oh, I'm in
Yeah.
the first year, second semester.
first year, second semester, so you young to the training of journalists. But let me, Utkarsh, take this liberty of do the work that I do all the time at work. Let me ask you a question. Because I trust that all the people who are connected, youngsters who are reading and who don't need uh, any sort of hand holding, and they're very capable of learning things from the environment. Utkarsh, I'd like to learn from you. What do you think are the key skills of being the question that you ask? If I may respectfully ask that question of you, what do you think are the key skills of becoming an English journalist? And then I'll sort of fill in the gaps.
Well, sir, degrees are just a piece of paper, but according to me, important skills are confidence. First of all, confidence because it shows everything what you are, and good command on English. And a person can start seeing debates which are on YouTube, news channels, and can read some books, content, newspaper on daily basis, and which will surely boost a person's skills in order to become a English news anchor.
Right, that's brilliant, Utkarsh. I mean, honestly, I probably would have said the same thing. So you see, a lot of times we have the answers with us, and the difference is only our willingness to apply ourselves. And again, for any vocation, and I say it with a lot of respect, it is not difficult to find out what are the skills required. What is it that we need to do? It is just the doing of it, which is the difficult part. So if we can, that all the things that you mentioned, and I say it's very good, and I hope others also agree with what you said. So if you can invest your energy in all the things that you listed. In fact, I don't have to add even one more thing. I mean, in the few years that I've spent in journalism, I don't know one extra thing that I can say that you don't already know, that others don't already know. So use that knowledge of the skills required to hone the skills. So if you say that watching television debates can be a good idea, yes, watch them, and watch them not just as a passive viewer, but watch them as an active participant. Watch them as an active participant. What would you have said as an anchor in that particular debate? If you were a guest, what would you have said as a participant guest in that particular debate? If you think a guest has crossed a line, how would you reprimand that guest? So even you watching it, think of being a part of that program. If you're watching an anchor breaking a news, or if you're watching a reporter reporting from from any situation, from a cricket match or from a disaster, a location or a situation of a disaster, don't just watch it as a passive viewer. Imagine, use your imagination to find yourself in his or her shoes. Think of how you would do the same job in that situation in a better manner. Go even into more details. What would be your choice of words? What problems do you find with the choice of words that the anchor or the reporter has indulged in? So in that manner, I think, and I do that. I watch a lot when I watch some news channels or interviewer. I think of why this person has asked this question like this. Sometimes there is intelligent link. I try to find that link. I wonder if I would ask something else. I wonder if I would be as nice or be as uh, difficult an interviewer. So, whatever you watch, make it a part of your learning, engage with it as an active participant. In that manner, you see, you already have become an anchor and a reporter, because every debate that you follow and you imagine yourself being a part of it, you're conducting it, you're already doing it. It adds to your experience.
Yes, sir. Sure.
So that should, I think, Utkarsh, help a lot. Don't be passive.
Yes, sir.
Be an active
Sir, my
engagement.
second question is,
Yeah.
so what do you think about the future of electronic media and video journalism? Because according to Google report, it will decline after 2025 due to advancement in technologies, AI and machine learning. So is it partially true or completely false?
Uh, yeah, we also come across these reports all the time. One day we were just in a light-hearted way. We were all terrified. There was this news anchor. There's a news coming in from China. So there was this virtual anchor presenting a news. He had a human face, and हम जैसे बिल्कुल बात कर रहा है. And I was thinking that, अरे, so not very distant future. Many of us may be out of job, So it's just a good joke. We were looking at it. But yeah, that's a very valid question as to what will happen in the future. And if I can induce a little drama into that response, we're all living in the time of the pandemic, and
Yes, sir.
if the pandemic has taught us anything, is that we can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen in the evening. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can anticipate it. We can engage in conversations like we are right now.
Yes, sir.
But we can never say for sure. So coming back to your question, yes, a lot of developments are taking place. Yes, in fact, yesterday before this talk, I was thinking that एक बार देख तो लेता हूँ, मतलब what do research say, मतलब television लोग देखते भी हैं कि नहीं, TV कितना देखते हैं. In fact, the research says 68% of viewers get their news now from online medium, which does not necessarily mean that television media is dead. I'm also saying that a lot of people might watch my news channel on YouTube, which is also चलो ठीक है कहीं तो देख रहे हैं. So that transformation is happening. It's a reality. And therefore, my point on the technology that I mentioned, that even while you're working and doing your job as a journalist, you have to constantly stay abreast with newer technologies and become comfortable with it. Once upon a time, television cameras used to be huge and very bulky and very difficult to manage. Then the size became smaller, right? You could carry it, camera persons could carry it. And in the age of mobile journalism, when it picks up in a more extensive fashion, think of this. So when you go to cover a story, you won't have a person carrying the tripod and a camera and a mic. You may just have one person carrying a mobile phone with everything attached to it. And be it the camera person, the editor, the reporter, the anchor, everything. So technology is evolving very fast. You have to keep a tab on that, and not just tab. You have to embrace it. Show willingness to embrace technology. There is no greatness in saying मैं तो ये नहीं करूँगा. मैं तो बस इसी model के camera पे काम करूँगा. I will not look at a phone camera and say, this is the resolution is not good enough. Don't have a sense of untouchability vis-a-vis technology. Always see it as a tool to empower yourself, not as something that will bring you down. As long as you can do that, I think you're future safe and future ready also in many ways. So don't be afraid. prepare yourself so that you are ready for the future. And personally, I don't think future. I don't foresee a future, to my knowledge and understanding, where things will change in a manner that journalists and mediums will become irrelevant. I think we are headed for a future which is going to be very, very diverse. In fact, if I can tell you that all of us, including me, have to be ready for that diversity. I think you will have to be, as a journalist, be ready for presenting a news in the studio, on the camera, then maybe walk out of the studio, quickly switch on. Many journalists are doing that. Many of my colleagues are doing that. Switch on your phone, engage in a conversation live, then maybe head out into the field, report on a story, then quickly write down a piece in a form of print journalism and put it on your website. Have a podcast the next day on the important takeaways of the stories that you cover. So I think we are headed to a future which is very diverse. So you have a choice. You can be very scared of diversity or embrace it. I think as long as you are willing to embrace it, you are someone who's going to do very, very well. And that's my humble advice to you, that we show willingness to embrace and newer develop. Don't be scared of it.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful insights, sir. I'll take this last question because we are running short of time now. Aparna wants to ask, and I also somehow believe in that why is that some public broadcasters are internationally acclaimed like BBC, and the most information we get about DD and Prasar Bharati is just in our curriculum of PGMC courses, and DD is not that acclaimed in television journalism as other channels, as private broadcasters are. Why is that in India?
Okay. Okay, I respect it as your perspective. You know, there would be many I know who would say that when we want to listen to news, we turn to Doordarshan. That is the place where we get credible information. That is the place where news and not dramatic outbursts and dramatization of news takes place. But respectfully, as a part of this series and a journalist, I will take both the points. About the criticism and the appreciation, I do think that we have a reach that many private channels would envy. I do feel our viewership goes deep into villages, into corners of the country where we're able to take credible, right, verified data and information. A lot of programs that we do, we're able to uphold the vision that we have. But I don't want to deny you your perspective and your question about why is it that A news channel is better than B news channel, and what can be done about it. Well, I think it works both ways. Of course, there is no limit to how much one can learn and improve. All news channels have scope to learn how to become better. Look at bigger news agencies that you mentioned, see how they're doing things better. From an individual to an organization, there is no shying away from wanting to learn and becoming better in terms of the quality of our journalism, in terms of the quality of our broadcasts, in terms of quality of telling our stories. So I'm not going to shy away from saying that, because we can always learn and become better. But the point that you've raised has an important aspect, and I want to be able to communicate that to you. And an aspect about viewership. I take your question respectfully as you as a viewer and I as a news channel, as to why you're not watching my channel, why you're watching something else, and what can I do to become better. Through the means of this question, I want to also say that today and for a long time, television media or any media, we have to see it as a two-way process. We need not just independent and good quality journalism with every news channel, but we also need our viewers to be more engaging and for our viewers to become more empowered in the manner in which they watch news and they absorb news. When I say that, I'm trying to say that you can't, as a viewer, say that I saw it on a news channel and I was disturbed and I think the nation is going through terrible times, the nation is going through good times. I think there is a lot of grooming that the viewers also must undergo. You must be able to distinguish from a bad story from a good story, good journalism from a bad journalism, in the manner in which you watch a particular channel, in which the manner in which you boost TRP, the responsibility of good journalism also lies with you as a viewer. You have to think of yourself as an important agency through which change happens. So if you support a particular kind of stories, if you support particular channels, if you don't support particular channels for the kind of work that they do, that message is sent across, and it is then on the channels to take the learning, improve themselves. There is no limit to how much one can improve, but viewers have to be, I think, a very active consumer of news in times that we are today, because there are so many perspectives going around. You have to be, in an intelligent manner, assimilate what is going on while you're getting perhaps different perspective from different news channels. So I take your point, in fact, as a creative and a constructive point that according to you, we may need to do better. Yes, why not? But my appeal to you as a viewer, and my appeal to all viewers, is to become intelligent viewer and to not take things on the face value. And what you watch, what you see, and then what you say reflects a lot on the kind of journalism that we see in our society. So don't be a passive viewer, be an active viewer. And I think that's how good journalism, good discourse can find space in our society.
Thank you so much. Ravneet, now over to you, Beta.
All right. So I think all the questions are answered and queries are clear. Thank you so much, sir, again to you for giving your important time and inspiring us. So now I request Dr. Barkha Behel, Director Tips, to please conclude the session.
Thank you, Ravni. All good things in life are either small or come to an end. And this event of ours is no such exception. Good afternoon, respected Chairman, sir, Mr. Ghosh, my dear colleagues, and all my dear students. During this 4 days lecture series, I hope that students must have been benefited by the knowledge being shared by the eminent speakers, Mr. Pradeep Menon, Dr. Kundu, Mr. Alok Sen Sharma, and by today's session by Mr. Ghosh. What I feel is that in today's world and during these pandemic tough timings, the topics which have taken forefront seat are managing stress, emotions, remaining non-violent in communication, values, ethics, and so on. And not only this, the most important aspect which has come and which is playing a major role is that whatever information we are getting or whatever we are communicating, we should communicate in a secured way. It should be informative. It should be authentic information should be there. This is specifically with respect to when we are communicating. But with the changing scenario, there are other areas also which needs lot of attention with the digital transformation, and during these tough timings and lockdown timings you can call, or pandemic timings you can call, that whenever we are attending some online lectures or whenever we are attending as a student, online sessions are being attended, classes are being attended by us, then we are doing our duties working from home, or it is we are talking about online journalism, mobile journalism, all those aspects, keeping into all those aspects in mind, what I feel is that it is very important that we need to be ethical. Ethical here means that as a student, we should sincerely attend the classes, attend You should not misuse the content being shared by you, or you should not tease anyone. You should not use any language which is not acceptable. So I think as a student, and you should learn also, you should be present. Even if your videos are off, you should be present and learning things attentively. So this is what I think is the ethicalities I mean there. And in when we are talking about online journalism or journalism, mass communication, photography, or so many topics which we have learned during these last 4 day session, there also I would say that, and as also focused by Mr. Ghosh also, that we have to be ethical. Ethical means that first of all we need to listen to our own self. Whatever we are communicating, whatever we are talking, is it acceptable? Those words will be acceptable or not? So all those parameters have been very nicely being covered by Mr. Ghosh, and I'm thankful to Mr. Ghosh for sharing his valuable experience and knowledge with all of us, wherein he talked about that how you can manage your emotions, thoughts, and how you can do your job, anchoring job in a balanced way, how you can prepare yourself and then you can move ahead with your duties, and how with the help of video, he showcased us that on during these tough timings also, you can, if want to help some unable person, that also, that is, you can help those person and you can become socially active also that way. You can contribute to the society. So what I wanted to convey to all the students here is that with this 4 day session, that we should follow all the policies laid down by the government for working in a digital environment, for communicating, for whether you are attending classes or whatever jobs you are being doing, performing online. That is, you need to do justice to your own self first. And if you are contributing sincerely and loyally towards all these parameters, then I hope that you can create a healthy environment everywhere, at your home, among your friends, in online classes, and as a result you can contribute to the nation and to the society. So this is what I wanted to give my message to all the students, the learnings which I have done during these 4 day session, and whatever Mr. Ghosh also explained to all of us today. And I hope that with all these sessions, students must have come to know that whatever is there in their syllabus, they need to do it. All these, cover all those aspects, parameters sincerely, and they should follow, and they can connect whatever is there in theory, practical, how they can relate it with the practical aspects which have been explained by all our eminent speakers. I wholeheartedly thank all the speakers for the same. Special thanks to Mr. Ghosh for sharing his valuable experiences with all of us, and how to face in a multifaceted environment the challenges which are ahead, and how to control emotions too. I express my hearty thanks to Dr. R.K. Tandon sir, our honorable chairman, for developing the culture of organizing various such events throughout the year. We are focusing on, we are trying our level best that we can provide best of the knowledge and information to the students. Thank you very much, sir, for your involvement, motivation, and guidance all through and all of our events. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ghosh. You have informed very valuable points to the students, and you have enlightened us also, that you have pointed out that the trust is very much required. An anchor should, develop the trust among the audience. Then you have informed about the balancing. At every situation, one has to be balanced, whether it is a grim situation, you are reporting a sad situation or a joyful. You have to be very balanced so that your emotion should not much convey to the audience, because audience are of different type. They take things differently for different situation. You have to be very, balanced at the time of your anchoring. So it is really very knowledgeable, and you have informed the students that they should be a knowledge bank, which is very much required. They are studying the course, but they are not coming across to the general knowledge and about their country. They have to learn different languages. They have to be very much good in general knowledge. They should know our political setup. They should know what are the main parties and what are the main states in India which is developing the economy of the country. Likewise, uh, one thing which is dominating in the industry, and you have really pointed out that very well, that you should not shout while addressing the audience. You should convey, you should connect to the audience. These days, now the culture is becoming in the media that shouting, taking discussions in a very loud manner so that they should attract the audience. So that should not be the culture of the country, and the anchors should convey, connect to the audience. This is very rightly you have pointed out. And I think with many of your good points, our audience, our students will be benefited today. And you are a very learned person, I must say. And we are really delighted to have you in this session. We are very pleased to have you in this session, and we would like to request you to remain in touch with the institution, and institution will also remain in touch with you so that we can have a long relationship, and the benefits which you are giving to the students should continue on the platform of the Trinity. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much,
Thank you.
Dr. Tandon. Thank you very much, Dr. Behel, all the teachers, faculty members, and students who are a part of this online lecture. I'm delighted. It's a great opportunity, and I'm honored to be a part of this very important discourse. And I think this kind of discourse, this kind of bringing in different perspectives, is the need of the hour. We see all around us everyone just going with their one set mindset and not willing to listen to the other side. I think these kind of discourses help us widen our own mental landscape and become more sensitive citizens first, and then perhaps journalists. So thank you to all the leaders, Dr. Tandon, Dr. Behel, and everyone else for organizing this event. And it's very gracious of you for having me for this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. But I want to give one more message to all the students that after your presentation and otherwise also, that the way you presented the session today, you were totally involved into it. You have been able to connect with all the audiences who were present today. So what I feel is that the most important parameter is that whatever you want to explore, present, and whatever duties you are doing, you must love your profession. Whatever is there, you must love it so that you can create that involvement. You need not have to create, that should come on your own. So this is what I feel is very important, that under compulsion, we should not do things. And if there are certain things which are compelled on us, then we should accept it happily, and then we should move forward, and we should give our best in that specific situation. Even if we are not loving your job, you force love also. If you have to do with your job, then do it, and do it with full honesty, honestly and sincerely. This is what I wanted to convey to all the students, because many a number of times what happens that students say, I wanted to do this and my field was this, I have not got this specific area. Does not matter, time will definitely come, and whatever job you are doing in that field itself, you can find your favorite topics and then you can go ahead. As you already told that you have to, when you are in air, you have to prepare on your favorite topics and others also. So like that you can get, in times to come, you can get your favorite topics also. So this is what I wanted to convey, and thanks to complete whole BGMC department, Dr. Alok Parna, Mr. Sahil, Bhavna, Sagrika, Mr. Ajay, Tapanshu, Mr. Musharraf, and Ms. Sonia for organizing this event. All participants, thanks to all the participants and student volunteers, Ms. Ravneet Kaur and Mr. Tushar, I hope, for doing anchoring and making this event a successful event. Thanks to all of my colleagues for their patience, presence and involvement for the event. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everyone.
much, ma'am, for your involvement.
Thank you.
So the session is almost over, but before that, I feel great to welcome Chief Coordinator, Mr. Sahil Dhal, for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ravneet. Thank you so much, Chairman sir, for always being the guiding light for a department. And thank you so much, Barka ma'am, for always being the supporting pillar. And whenever we had any doubt, you were always there as an open window to give us that light. And I would just like to thank Mr. Ghosh for being there on this call and enlightening our students and with your beautiful thoughts and your valuable experience.
Absolute
And
pleasure.
thank you, sir. And I'd also like to thank Alokparna ma'am and Bhavna ma'am for the best for being the best organizers and the best team. And Tapanshu sir, Ajay sir, and Ushara sir for being the backbone of technical support. And I would like to thank Sonia ma'am, Sagarika ma'am for polishing the anchoring skills of our beautiful students so much, Anushka and Ravneet. Thank you, students, and the whole BGMC department. Thank you very much, and looking forward to organize such more events in the coming future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sahil, for organizing this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
But before leaving, I would say that we can have one group photograph if all of us can switch on videos.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Ajay, if you, after taking video, just inform.
Just taking it.
Just request all the students to please switch on the videos.
Yeah, everyone to please smile.
Instruct Ajay to say cheese.
Yeah, cheese. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again, Shubhendu sir.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And
Have a
thanks
good
to all
week.
the students who have asked, who have
Yes.
raised number of questions,
Yeah.
and all were answered very nicely by all the eminent speakers. Thanks to all of them.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Take your leave then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.